Celebrities endorsement.
What do you think about that?
It used to be a thing. I'm not sure if you were watching TV when you were younger, right? But like when you're watching advertisements on TV,
We didn't watch TV when we were younger.
I don't know what kind of TV.
I used to get whipped if I watched too much TV.
Right. Or maybe the kind of advertisements you're seeing
Yeah.
when you were younger. I always see celebrities on the TV ads. And I wasn't thinking about it obviously when I was younger, right? But there's this perception that, if the celebrity is endorsing that brand, therefore it must be a pretty good brand.
True. I mean, we still see it today. Like over here, what the main one I know is like what is it? Let's just say Koei,
Yeah.
endorsed by some
Sydney
Korean,
Lisa and the Korean boy band.
yeah, something like that. Or yeah, I actually see a lot of Korean.
I think because of the Korean wave, right? Like
Yeah,
everybody just into.
Correct.
But what do you think it makes sense? Like for a boy band to endorse a water filter brand?
So yeah.
Why? How so?
Okay, so here's my perspective. You have someone that is in a authority figure.
Okay.
Someone that a lot of people like.
Yep.
Okay, so
follows or listen to.
Correct. So you have this person that is very much liked by the people. So whatever that this person does is going to be, I guess, sort of mimicked, right? So if you do this, I want to do this. If you have a Samsung phone, I want a Samsung phone.
Right.
Because I feel like you know what you're doing, kind of thing.
Right.
Or you have the lifestyle that I want to live.
I want to live your life.
Yes.
Because I want to be you, sort of more, right?
Correct. So if you look so beautiful when drinking this kind of water, I want to look like you.
Yeah, I must drink that water to be as beautiful as you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that is a really good segue into what we want to talk about today.
Yeah.
Episode 2.
Yes.
Hopefully.
Very not subtle.
very not plan to plan.
So we're talking about influencers today, guys.
Yes, so we're talking about influencer marketing today.
Yeah.
It's huge. Arguably has been around, grown a lot more popular recently.
Yeah.
But just for the benefit of everyone that's listening, let's start with what is an influencer? Like, what is influencer marketing?
What is influencer marketing? Someone that has some sort of influence over you and telling you to do something.
Right.
It can be anyone.
Okay, I like that, because I think the first thing that people would jump to is KOLs, celebrities, the macros.
Yeah.
People you follow on Instagram, or like people you follow on social media.
The different types of influencers, right?
Exactly.
Hang on, let me throw this to you. Do you call them influencers or do you call them KOL?
I think just from the semantics, it's two very different things.
Right.
I do think that you can be a socialite.
Yeah.
That has no influence whatsoever.
Yeah.
But people know you.
Yes.
You have a huge network.
Yeah.
You're influencing nobody but yourself.
Yeah.
Arguably, you're not even a key opinion leader. You are not. You have no opinion at all.
Yeah.
But just within the two buckets of being a key opinion leader
and
an influencer, I think there's a big difference. So I think a key opinion leader is someone whose message you would want to listen to. There's a lot more authority in the message.
Yes.
Whereas as an influencer, you are able to drive action or behavior.
Yeah.
You may not even be talking about factual stuff.
Yeah.
Or it isn't really a thought. It doesn't have to come from a authenticated, authoritative opinion.
Yep.
You are just so engaging and so influential that people want to listen to you.
Correct.
So I do see it as two different buckets, although then I think there's a huge overlap.
Yeah, because so my understanding was that it was called influencer, right? So when I first knew about this whole segment, it was called influencer. However, like when I started wanting to engage with influencer,
right,
apparently, or I'm just going to call out Malaysia. Apparently, in Malaysia, people don't like to be called influencer.
Oh, that's interesting. I
Like
thought people want to be influencers.
they want to be called KOLs.
Right. Do you know why though?
I think it just sounds fancy, like you have something to say.
Right. It's less shallow.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just like the difference between, I think just like the fine line between a model and a talent. I think a model is more restrictive. It sounded like you are modeling.
Yeah.
Whereas the talent sounded like you are
something else.
Oh, I feel like we're digging our own grave. So
Yeah.
quickly move on. But you mentioned about the types of influencers. I think for the purpose of this episode, at least, let's just lump them into one big, talent, influencers, KOLs,
everything,
celebrities, even. What are the different types that's out there based on your?
I generally class them as 3 different levels, right? You have your micro,
Okay.
you have your macro ones,
Yeah.
then you have your celebrities.
Okay.
And why I say that is mostly because, like, as a celebrity, you are in your typical like media segment, right? Then you have your micros, which is like super massive, like heaps of following.
Right.
You may be doing something like, let's just say you're a singer or whatnot. So I'll still class you as a macro influencer. But like then you have your micro, which is like the sub 10,000. Yeah, very niche. Like anything above that, like I kind of like maybe in the medium side, I call you like macros still, only because maybe you're unknown, but you have a massive following.
Right.
Well, let's just say you're a pretty girl. Like you have a decent body, everyone loves it. You post really decent content. People just love your stuff. So you're considered macro. People know about you. If I ask, hey, do you know Gatita?
Right.
People will be like, yeah, right, I know. All right. So it's kind of like that. Like I see them as like almost 3 segments.
Okay.
Celebrity is someone that has either acted,
right,
sang, or whatever, that kind of stuff. Because some of the celebrities actually have really low following.
That's true, but they're still celebrities.
Yeah, I still consider them like only because they've acted or they've sang, and I feel like that is a different segment. Like you maybe because maybe they have their own agents and stuff like that.
Right.
And when you want to
It's a little bit more professional.
Yeah, slightly different group. Yeah.
So maybe to anchor it back down, I think the classification is important, specifically from the marketing perspective, because we need a way to engage them.
Yeah.
Right. So I think just being able to know roughly when I say micro, we're talking about smaller followings, not necessarily less professional or less expensive, which is something I want to address. I think I do believe, because my classification is a little bit different.
Yeah.
I do think that the size of the following matters.
Yes.
But how much they are worth doesn't have to be tagged solely on the size of the following.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I think just to throw into the mix, I agree with your micro celebrity. I think it makes sense. It's a very commonly used industry term.
Yeah.
The other way I look at it is also from the subject matter expert or the niche that they're holding. So I'll kind of classify them as, are you a subject matter expert?
Yeah.
Right. So like if you are speaking about sustainability and the earth, and
is this where you call them KOLs now?
Yeah, right. It's KOLs, right? They have an opinion that people should listen to.
As long as you have something to say. Like if you're just posting things like your dances, I don't know if you really.
And then you're a creator. You're a content creator. You can be a successful content creator because people consume your content and people follow you for your content. But do you really have an opinion though?
Yeah, I guess so. But they could, okay, and this is arguably right. They could have an opinion on how to create good content that people want to watch or consume.
Sure.
So maybe, maybe.
So yeah, that's one. The other thing that I think we think about when we think about influencers or KOLs is that the definition is really vague. So here's this one for you, right? Just to put you under the microscope. Based on what you just said about content creation and the followings, is an OnlyFans creator then also an influencer because they have a huge following, or they have a huge subscription?
Absolutely.
Right.
Because I can think of many ways to get them to sell something.
That's okay. That's a good point.
So yes.
So from our perspective, as long as we can use them to push a brand product message, they are a valued influencer.
Yeah. Well, I think okay, not just sell stuff, right? But like I generally think like even if you're an OnlyFans person, you have influence in certain people in terms of being able to communicate to them about certain things that they want to consume.
Right.
So let's just say you're posting photos of your tits and ass, and you have people wanting to consume this and wanting to interact with you.
Right.
So meaning that you have the ability to communicate to them and they can receive this information. So in that sense, you also have the ability to maybe positively influence this person, right? Like,
right.
It could be that, you know, maybe the person has low sex drive.
Right.
Now that you've positively influenced the person has higher sex drive. Or maybe you help them with building their confidence.
Right.
Now, maybe this person is more willing to speak to someone in public, in person, right? So I think even though, yes, maybe the stigma of an OnlyFans person isn't quite the same as like, you know, your IG or your YouTube or whatever, but there's still a certain type of influence that they have with the audience that I believe can work.
Right.
Just depending on which one.
Can you then be an influencer if you have low to no followings?
I want to say yes. I want to, you know,
just to be inclusive.
I only have like 700 followers. I think I'm okay. I think I'm influencing people. You know, I managed to get people to try skydiving.
Right.
Does that count? Like, so
I think so. I think you can consider them an influencer of you can be an influencer of one fan, right? You can influence then that one person.
Correct.
You're not a very effective influencer.
Yeah.
But who's to say that one person isn't the most valuable customer segment for that one particular brand, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So then it comes back to quality versus quantity, which we will dive into as well when we talk about influencers.
Yep.
So moving on then to using influencers. So it's been like you said earlier, it's been around, been using it. There are different, I think the different evolution of it, from the celebrity driven ones to the more mass ones that we see today.
Yeah.
How do you think brands are using them?
I think for me anyway, I do see some brands doing well in terms of being able to engage people for the right reasons, right? But also I find that a lot of brands are kind of just throwing money out there only because they're using the same principle as like the old school celebrity.
Right.
They think this celebrity holds a certain value in the market, so they throw money at it and hope that it will give them some sort of return. So where I think a good influencing campaign can be is where the value of the person matches up with the value of your business.
Right. So that it really has. So what you're trying to say is you can be the influencer, or you can be an influencer with the highest number of followings.
Yeah.
You are not necessarily the best influencer for all the brands.
No.
Right.
No. Well, we've done many, right? Like, so one could say that even if this person has, you know, 50 million
following,
doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best ones.
Right.
Like you can have like, okay, let's just use like Kim Kardashian. I think off the top of my head, if you have any type of product, you can probably pitch it to them and pay a large chunk of money,
right?
And it will most likely work. Only because the value of that person is quite widespread, right? So she's not tied into a particular niche. She's not tied into a particular thing. She's tied into this whole lifestyle, right?
Right.
That sort of like middle striving to upper class world, where if you have certain products that kind of caters to that, then Kim is like a good market to go into. Right. Or like Kylie Jenner or Kendall or whoever. Like, if you feel like your market fits that group, fantastic.
So I think for the benefit of the younger marketeers, or even the, in the spirit of dumb consumers, for the benefit of the unaware clients,
Dumb.
you said it. What happens if you choose the wrong influencer? So what? Because remember when we talked about vanity matrix the last episode, we say that it's a game of risk, right? That if you spread your net wide, you get big followings, at least you're protected. That that's sort of the insurance. It's like followings. Like if I go with the bigger influencers, at least I have that reach.
Yeah.
So then what happens if it's the wrong reach? What happens if it's the wrong influencer?
What happens if it's wrong influencer? If it's the wrong one, then you're just sending the wrong message.
Right. Or the message doesn't get across.
Yeah, like, okay, let's use Malaysia as an example, right? If your product is very Malay and you put in some Chinese OnlyFans girls, like, it's very wrong already.
Right.
You may, then again, like, you may be able to create some sort of awareness, yeah, or
to all the wrong people,
or some interesting PR work there.
Right.
But like, if you're just trying to get a message out there, I think it's just the wrong message,
right,
going forward, right? But it is still some sort of message. It's just how you want to turn it at that point. I think most agencies will pitch a set of influencers to a brand and hope that the numbers are what they're looking for.
Right.
Right. Without taking into account the sentiment of what that person brings.
Right.
So if this person is extremely, let's just say, anti-Islam, right? Like, and a lot of the content is, anti-whatever, but like, your product is predominantly Malay targeted and Muslim targeted. That's kind of stupid, right?
Right.
Or like, if you're an alcohol brand, you're using a Malay influencer, which does not work.
To Malay audience who is very left wing and not
correct.
Right.
So
that's a very good example.
Yeah, and I've seen this before. Like, I've seen alcohol brands wanting to use Malay influencers, and this is an international brand, right? So where they're not too sure what's happening in the local scenes, and our job is to advise them of what to do.
Right.
Like, this is just like a point in case where it's just bad.
But I think, I know we're not talking about localization today, but that is a very good example of a right thought process leading to the wrong outcome. I can totally imagine the alcohol brand sitting in US or Europe or wherever else, that Malaysia, thinking, hey, we want to enter the Southeast Asian market. Malaysia has a huge nightlife scene. Alcohol makes sense there. Let's go in and look at the market research. Hey, you know what? 70% Malay. Definitely need to hit the market, right? Look for a Malay influencer. So the thought process was correct.
Yes.
Except without the context that most Malays are Muslims and can drink.
Correct.
Right. So
and I think Malaysia, like, as a country, is quite unique compared to most countries out there. So, you take, let's just say, UAE. UAE is super straightforward. Like, you have your Arabs there, and then you have your foreigners living there. Right. Even in Thailand, Vietnam, Australia, US, it's all in the one language.
Right.
Maybe there's certain localized areas where it's like Spanish or whatever. Like in Australia, maybe there's a certain area that is a little bit more Greek orientated, but like generally the culture there is very flat. Right. Compared to, like, let's just say Malaysia or Singapore, where culture is bloody diverse.
Significantly, like the subcultures are significantly different.
Correct. And you have like your own community, you have your own subsets of languages, you have, even though like as a country you identify as one identity, but there's still, like, you have your own identity in that sector, right?
So coming back to what we just said, right, about the impact of using the wrong influencer. Maybe it's time we kind of spill the beans, right? How do you then choose the influencer? What's the right way of doing it?
Okay, so understand what the brand is trying to do.
This speaking from the brand marketer perspective, right?
Yeah, like, let's just say I'm this alcohol brand, right? Like, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to get people to drink it. what kind of people am I trying to get to drink? But as a brand, you should know this already. And even if not trying to localize it, even if you know that in a local area, there's certain people that drink your product or use your product very differently, you still need to know that, right? So once you have that like persona or profile, then you go out to the market and look for like an influencer.
And to be clear and specific, you're not looking for an influencer that is in that profile.
Correct.
Right? You are looking for an influencer where their followers are in that profile.
Correct.
And I think that's something that most people don't, or most brands sometimes overlook, right?
Yeah.
Thinking, hey, I'm reaching out to the Malay audiences.
Yeah.
Therefore, I only want to look for Malay influencers. Actually, that's very untrue because there are a lot of Chinese influencers with huge Malay followings.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's the biggest part. Like most people will kind of go to an influencer and look, oh, I love this person as a person, right?
Correct.
But they don't understand that what you're actually trying to buy is not that person. You're buying
their followers.
Yes, their followers.
Yeah.
So you need to understand like what their followers are doing and how are they interacting with this person.
Right.
Because in essence, once they're going to be acting as your brand. So if they don't like this person, they're not going to like your brand.
Exactly. Like it's almost as if, reaching out to a family influencer group, thinking that you will reach other families. Turns out you're just reaching a bunch of kids, right? That may not work out at all.
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes I think like if you look at like some hot chick on IG, you're thinking that you may be reaching to a bunch of girls.
Beauty products and cosmetics.
No. You need to look into it. Most of the time, it's just full guys.
40-year-old male.
Yeah, it's full guys. It's full guys.
Which doesn't mean that they are invaluable. They're just very valuable if you're trying to sell to men.
Yes, correct. I think like an example, like let's just say Gatita. Right? Although like her following is full man, she's done the right thing by selling vibrators and sex toys. Right? Because
even though her followers are full men?
Yeah. So in that sense, right, what she's doing is these are the things that you can use to pleasure your woman.
Right. So she's still selling to the man.
Yes. So she's selling to the man by saying that, hey, these are the things that you can use with your partner, with your girl.
Love this.
Yes. By speaking from a female's perspective.
Right.
Which I think is the smart way to do it. Like that's you're using exactly what your audience want, right? The audience, she already knows her audience are mostly males.
Right.
But why like they're already consuming like adult content and stuff like that. So what's the next step from there? You take the next step to buy toys.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect example almost of having the right influence, having the mass, the reach, the influence, plus having the authority as a woman herself to then say, hey, men, listen up. As a woman, this is what it is.
Yes.
If you're trying to do that for your partner,
yes,
this is what you need to do. I think it's perfect combo of the right person talking about the right topic to the right pool of people.
Yeah. And I think it's not easy to see. I don't think this pathway is very straightforward. This kind of takes a while to like, okay, what else does a person want, right? And even a typical business, I would say it's very hard for them to understand what their customers truly want, let alone like picking an influencer that will have the right target audience.
Exactly.
Right.
True.
Yeah.
I have a very good example of a very boring business that has a very good thought process. So I can't name the brand, unfortunately, but you would definitely know them. They are an online trading platform, one of the first in Malaysia, one of the best in Malaysia, where you can buy and sell stocks online. So they knew that their target market, first off, were traders or new traders, that those who don't already have a stockbroker. And then they kind of saturated that pool because they are one of the best in the country already, right? So then try to move on and say, hey, okay, where is my adjacent customers going to come from? And their thought process was so good because instead of looking at it from a trading perspective, like people who are traders, they're thinking about it from a digital perspective, because they're saying that if you are going to be a trader, you can always go to an alternative. You can walk into a branch, go to a typical bank. You can always do that. But if you are more digital native or digital first, you're more likely to look for an online solution rather than a traditional solution. So then they're looking for a pool of traders within an online audience. So then the target market became gamers, e-commerce shoppers, e-commerce sellers, people who are comfortable with the digital space, with the online space already, and then tell them, hey, you could be trading or you should be trading. This is what you're losing out on. And I think it's such a brilliant idea because not many brands get to this level of conversation. Most brands that we listen to get stuck at the conversation of lowest hanging fruit. And what they're trying to say is, give me the cheapest audience, the easiest audience. But if you're good at what you do, you shouldn't be talking about lowest hanging fruit for 3-5 years in your brand journey, right? At some point, you're going to finish picking the lowest hanging fruit. It's about time for you to go to a new tree. Most marketers aren't mature enough to have that conversation to say, hey, you know what? Actually, the lowest hanging fruit is pretty tall because I've plucked all the low ones. I need a freaking tall ladder to get to my next lowest hanging fruit. The next best actually is the lowest hanging tree. Like it's the nearest tree with a lower hanging fruit, which is what they try to do, right? Say, hey, you know what? I've saturated my traders market, my stock buyers market. I should be looking at a new pool and then push people to be traders instead. Okay, then the cost per acquisition would have made sense. So I think that's a very, very good example of identifying target market and understanding that the people I'm talking to, if I'm using him to talk to a person, I'm not necessarily selling to him. I'm selling to the person that he's selling to.
Yes, absolutely. And in this situation, like an influencer is really someone that is technically digital as well, right? It could be a banker.
Exactly. Now that we roughly know how to choose the right influencer, I think as we advocate in the previous, I guess it's going to be a consistent theme throughout the whole podcast as well. How do we then measure the results? How do you know that, like, oh, while our gut feel say that she's the right or he's the right influencer, at the end of the campaign, how do I know that I've done a good job? Or better yet, if I've chosen 5 influencers, all of them arguably could be right. But who is more right? Like, how do I rank them? How do I know who did a better job? Assuming they all charge me different rates, how do I then, if I want to compensate my performance, how do I know if they've done well?
Good question. I think maybe the same thing as what we did with the vanity matrix. It's a scale of what is most important right now. So depending on what platform and what the thing that you're using, the easiest one would be sales.
Like direct
Direct
use my
sales.
promo code, use my
Use my affiliate link, promo codes, or whatever, right? There's a direct way of tracking sales or lead generation or whatever the ultimate metric is.
Right.
I think that's probably the easiest one. The second one would be the one just before, which is, I guess, like the click-through rate for it.
Right.
So if someone's seen it and they don't take action, then sort of pointless as well.
Right.
But if they've seen it, they've clicked on it to go to your website and
get a free trial, get a free sample.
Or even if they didn't buy it, I still think it's good because that person has influenced them to actually click through.
Right. Even if they're not a target buyer, there's enough of a push
to
make them now someone who has seen it before.
Correct.
Right.
And then I guess the last one will probably be like your views or your engagement numbers.
Right.
To determine whether or not this person is good. But I don't like that part only because it can be manipulated very easily.
Right.
And it holds almost no value. Like it's a number that you want to look at as a way to kind of gauge how well it's going, but it's not the, when you end the campaign, it's the number that you'd be like, oh my God, I have 500,000 views. Fantastic, no sales.
Right.
Spent $500,000.
True. If you want to know more about that, go back to episode 1, Vanity Metrics. We talk about a lot about it. But I absolutely agree. I think it's a balance between what your objective is, and then being able to measure it, and what the quality score is, and then being able to measure it. So if it's sales, that's what you're looking at. Being able to then attribute sales to them. At the very least, one step prior, the landing, the cards, the view, the downloads, the action. At the very least, one step before, which is the views, the impression, the reach. And of course, every step of the funnel we climb, it's going to get more weight. Right?
Yeah.
So the idea is to be able to track as much of the funnel as possible.
Yeah.
And as accurate as possible.
Do you think there's another way of determining whether or not a campaign is good if it's not based on a matrix?
Right. I think, and this is where maybe the only time I would say that a certain level of judgment and subjectivity may make sense. So for an influencer campaign, sometimes the goal isn't really to sell. Actually, sometimes the goal is to educate, to share a new product, a new service, or actually even a message. Right? For example, let's take voting. Right? Like a bunch of NGOs were running influencer campaigns to encourage people to vote. Right? Of course, then the most correlated measurement would be the number of people who actually turn out voting. But regardless of the voter turnout, how do you know that it's this influencer that have caused that to happen? Because there's so many steps in that decision-making process, right? So while you want to attribute the rise in voter turnout to your influencer campaign, it's very hard for you to defend it at all, right?
True.
So if that's the case, then I think the subjectivity matters. Here in this case, you want to be able to talk to people that have seen their campaign. And it's almost like sampling, right? So if you're a statistician and you're running a lab experiment, you release the message to the wild. In this case, you take Harith Iskandar, give him a voice, release him to the wild. And then you go around asking people like, hey, let's sample 100 people and say, hey, out of the 100 people that I'm sampling within voting age, how many of you actually voted? And out of those people who voted, how many of you actually voted because you heard Harith Iskandar say, or how many of you heard Harith Iskandar say, go vote? Right? I think that's a very, very good way of sampling. Very, very subjective. Sort of. But it's better than not being able to measure.
True. Yeah. I'm trying to find a way that, because it's quite a fair chunk of money, right? Like if you throw, like, let's just say, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 to a person, and you don't have a number that you can absolutely track, I kind of feel like it's quite painful to me anyway.
For sure.
To be able to not say like half a mil was used in wisely here. So without that, I think that's probably a shit campaign to me. Not being able to track properly.
Correct. I absolutely agree, because there's so many more things you could have done with the same amount of money that you could track properly. Right. So I absolutely agree with you, right? That I think the inability to attribute 100% gives it. So another example that I had, which is also subjective, is when I was using an influencer to promote a particular product. Right. In this case, his follower actually reach out to him and say, hey, you know what? That was a very good review. I actually went to see the product. I ended up putting a booking on it. And then he screenshotted it and shared it with me. Does that mean that every single one of the followers made a purchase? Definitely no. But there was at least one. And I think that the idea that I have is that if he's able to convince one person to make that booking, what it means is that the message or the content is probably good enough to educate the rest of the followers of the quality of the product, or of the product, of the details of the product. Maybe not everyone convert, but the fact that one did means that there's enough information to actually convince them to convert. Then from a perspective of completion of the job, then the influencer have done a good job, because he has created the content good enough with his reach and his audience to be able to then drive some people for conversion. Which is still subjective, I understand.
I think at least there's something there that can be used, right? Like it's kind of like if he managed to get, let's just say, 50 replies like that, that's almost like 50 click-throughs.
Exactly. 50 quality visit.
Yes, something like that. Even if they don't buy it or whatever, they just go, I went to the website, checked it out, really liked it, but like it's just too expensive. Whatever, right? That's 50 feedbacks there that I can generally use to say was attributed to this person's effort.
Right.
I think that's still...
I completely agree. And I think it's what we were talking about, right? That this is such a better balanced conversation
Yeah.
versus how many views.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe I'm just old already. I'm tired of like listening to like how many views you have. But views is just one number. Like I know some people aren't willing to commit to a sales or whatever, but ultimately those are the things that you need to be looking into. Like like for me, if you look at a lot of the campaigns, right, the international campaigns, they all have a QR code or a discount code or a link that directly attributes the effort of this person to the work that they've done.
Yeah.
And this is how you know that this person can improve in terms of how they deliver content or whatever.
Right.
But if it's merely just numbers like views, a person can easily just buy these views.
Correct. And then that's spoken like a true marketer, right? Because beyond just the reporting and the attribution, actually our job is also optimization.
Correct.
And if you can't track and attribute properly, there's no place for optimization at all.
Yeah, and I find this like this is the part where the influencer industry needs to improve, is to be able to figure out what is good content. Not just say that I'm making good content and I have like 500,000 followers,
Right.
but to actually be able to mobilize your followers and convince them that this is a good product to use.
Right.
And then for them to then attribute those.
And I think in support of people who are making efforts towards this, I think like shout out to people from KOL Hub, who is not only aggregating talents, but also providing standard platform,
correct,
standard reporting.
Yeah.
And at the very least, I think even if you're unable to get down to like the nitty-gritty traceability, raising the bar of accountability. Because there's so many brands that are just engaging influencers without looking at results or without looking at impact. At the very least, these standard measures, views, clicks, visits, conversations, engagement, it allows brands to now start to think about, oh, actually, I should be asking for result so I've run an influencer campaign and not just pay money and, not know where the link even is posted, right?
The boss is happy, so I'm happy now.
True. Yeah. So just before we go to the conclusion, maybe just as a personal aside, have you ever bought something because of an influencer campaign?
I'll say yes. So I'm not a big fan of the type where there's no correlation.
Right.
Right. So when I say there's no correlation, it's where this person has just started rambling about this product for no reason, but it's not part of their life.
Right.
Right. So I've never bought it from that perspective, only because I didn't feel like it was genuine. But I have bought things from, like, let's just say camera gears, right? Camera gears or like tech gadgets from, let's just say, YouTube influencers, where they've really spoken about it. They've gone into depth about it, and they provided this affiliate link down the bottom. And they said, like, look, if you like this content, you want to help me out, click on the link, go buy it. I've done it. I've done it plenty of times, and I think those are the ones that I find worthwhile.
Right.
There are certain cases where I've seen certain influencer kind of like very subtly said, look, I'm going into this massage parlor to go try it out, and then they came out and they said, oh, it's not too bad, it's pretty good. I like the facial part. The massage could have been a little bit harder. I've given those places a go as well, only because it felt genuine.
Right.
It felt like it wasn't faked.
Yeah.
Right. It felt like
authentic.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very good testament that it works, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of alluded a little bit into reviews as well.
Yeah.
So I think personally, I have made more purchases because of the reviews,
Yes.
not necessarily because of the brand ambassadorship. So I think for influencers I follow, I don't even think it's paid reviews or even paid promotions, right? I just felt like he's using it, he's reviewing it, I like him, I believe in the things he said, that use case fit what I'm looking for.
Yes.
And I've literally bought that same product, albeit not from him, but because of those reviews. But I think reviews is an entirely different topic altogether,
Yeah.
probably somewhat related to the influencer giving the reviews.
Yeah.
But I think I'm a lot more influenced by reviews rather than influencers.
Yeah. I think use case is super important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like you telling me that if you have this problem, this is what
This is how you solve it. Yeah.
solve it. Like even if it's not a review, right? Like let's just say like the person basically is trying to promote this bottle of gin.
Yeah.
But like if you gave me like, you know, a setting where the person is sitting at a a lounge
Mm-hmm.
and it's a cigar lounge and you know they're smoking a cigar or drinking this particular gin and telling me like this is not too bad.
Right.
Like even though it's not a direct review, like just seeing it from this influencer person makes me go, you know what, I want to give it a go.
Right.
Just because of that.
Or problem solution. I think I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you know that it's a paid ad.
Yes.
They are paid actors.
Yes.
They're saying it because it was scripted.
Yeah.
But the fact that the brand chose that as their marketing strategy, for me at least, it kind of means that, oh, they must be really good at solving that one problem, because in that 30 seconds that they can buy, they chose to say that one thing.
Correct.
Right? Not the packaging, not the price, not that. They chose to say, hey, you know what? If you have hangover every time you have gin and you love gin and don't want to get hangover, this is the one for you. I feel like that must be a key difference in your brand, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think so too.
Cool. So to wrap it up, I think since we talk a lot about the brand side of things, I would say then, what's your advice to media planners for someone who is advising the brands on how to use an influencer marketing campaign? Younger marketeers who are on the agency side that's getting briefed from the client. I want to get Niloufar because she has the highest follower. I want Jane Sharp because she has the highest follower. What advice will you give to them to go and help educate the rest of the market for us?
If it was me, step one is to profile your own company, your own brand, your own service. Like figure out who is going to buy it. If you don't have this like person in mind, then you're going to say everyone, and not everyone's your customer. So if you know this person, then you go into these influencers' profile, go to their following. Can you see these people there?
Right.
If you see these people there, then this is a good person. Then the next one will be the content itself, which I think it's a completely different topic altogether. But I think the content itself should be relatable to the audience itself, not to what the content producer can make, but what the audience actually want to hear and see.
Right.
And that's pretty much how it's.
That's perfect. And I think my only takeaway from that is, or at least my key takeaway from this conversation at least, is that if you want to either advise a client on what is the right influencer to use, for you to figure out who is the right influencer to use, talk to the target market, and then ask them who they follow. Right? Like if you are the ideal consumer, I'll come to you and say, hey Roger, who do you follow? Give me some examples.
Actually, that's a better way. Yeah.
Right. Then you work your way back up. That's another way to do it.
Yeah, that's a good way too. Yeah.
So on that note, I think we're wrapping up today's episode. Hopefully you have a good one. And as usual, if you have any feedback, comment, discussion, if you want to challenge what Roger said, feel free to drop it in the comment below. We're definitely going to address it in the coming episodes.
Yeah.
Last words from you?
Like, subscribe, thumbs up or whatever, share. But yeah, until then, see you guys in the next episode.
Cheers.
Yeah.